Hey folks, Joe Valley here, and welcome to another episode of the Quiet Life Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by, and this is so selfish, the Exitpreneur's Playbook. It's a book that I have written and launches on June 15th of 2021. It's a culmination of 10 years of work in the advisory field, working with entrepreneurs like yourself, having built, bought, and sold over 6 of my own companies, and now selling almost 100 million in total transactions personally and touching another $500 million through Quiet Light. I share a lot of success stories and some failures of my own and of my clients in the book itself. And anything that I do in the valuation process, from the initial valuation calls to deal structures, to add backs, to working with attorneys, due diligence, whatever is covered from the entire process that I've gone through with, probably bare minimum 5,000 conversations is in the book. It's a guidepost for you to go ahead and understand what brings or plummets the value of your business. And it launches again June 15th, 2021. And I'm excited. I'm excited to share it with you. You can go to exitpreneur.io and get a free chapter on deal structures. And then I'll notify you exactly when it launches and give you a discount code for the book. Now, today's episode is with a Quiet Giants movie star, I guess, if you will. It's with Leigh Huynh. Leigh is a client of Quiet Lights, and she came to this country when she was just 15 years old and did not speak a lick of English. She'd never watched television, didn't have electricity in the town that she grew up in Vietnam. Her and her family came to this country with $200 and $2,000 in debt. And 20 years later, something like that, Leigh will give you the details during the podcast, she ended up selling her business for nearly 7 figures. That's almost $1 million. It's a very, very poignant success story. She's sweet and she is an introvert. So the interview is a lot of me talking and pulling information out of her, but she's a success story, if you will, of first an immigrant, second an entrepreneur, and third a female entrepreneur. And that's something we don't have enough of in this e-commerce world. So take a listen. And her name is Leigh Huynh. She's also a Quiet Giants Chapter 4 that you can find on the Quiet Light YouTube channel. Hey, Leigh, great to see you. Welcome to the Quiet Light. Oh, welcome back to the Quiet Light podcast. You're a 2-timer now.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me again.
Well, I'm glad to have you here in conjunction with the launch of Quiet Giants Chapter 4, a story about your entrepreneurial journey and exit, a little bit of your life too, which is fascinating in terms of how old you were when you came to this country, what your mom had, what your challenges were, and my goodness, where you're at today. It's a great story. Thank you for spending all that time recording Quiet Giants. I know it was a royal pain in the you-know-what. Do you want to just tell everybody right now, being a movie star is not all it's cracked up to be? It's a lot of work sitting in front of the camera for several days at a time. You're not ready to do it again right away, are you?
No, I want to live a quiet life. Nobody knows me.
This is the last bit of it, I swear. At least from us. We won't bother you anymore. It's just such a motivating story, though. And the first thing I want to ask you is, I want you to think back to the day you sold your business. We went through, we listed it, we survived due diligence and that probe of all the financial information. And then closing day happened, and then money showed up in your bank account. I want to focus on how you felt at that time. Do you recall the feeling that you had when it was all done? You weren't responsible for the daily activity of the business anymore, and there was actually some money in your bank account. How did you feel when it was all said and done?
I think I felt relaxed, happy, excited a little bit. It was nice. Like, it was a smooth transaction. We finally closed.
Let's hone in on the word relaxed. You felt relaxed. Was it just peace of mind because it was done and you accomplished something that you had set out to do? And I like to equate it to sort of running on a hamster wheel, right? You're just grinding it out, running this business, and you can't get off. It never goes away. And did that peace of mind come from exiting? Is that what you're talking about in terms of that relaxed feeling?
Yeah, definitely. It's like you feel like you got no responsible left and you feel like you've done something great.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
Yeah.
did that. You did something great. It was pretty impressive what you did. Let's talk a little bit about the history. You know, you and I had originally talked about listing the business and did list the business for a few weeks when your husband was going to be transferred, I believe it was to Japan for work. And
Right.
about 3 weeks in, you said, look, Joe, this is too much. Transfer's not happening. I'm going to hold the business. We had gone through a lot of analysis on the business and what the strengths and weaknesses were. And we really highlighted some weaknesses at that point in terms of sourcing product, right? In your local area in the Northwest. It really required a buyer to buy locally in many ways, or for us to find a local buyer in many ways. When you had delisted the business, folks, just for those listening, it was 15 to 18 months later that Leigh came back, and we were able to list the business for about 40% higher than just 15 months ago. And within 3 weeks, we had the business under letter of intent, and then another 3 to 4, and it closed for all cash. Leigh, how motivating was it for you to go through the process to really understand the valuation process and sort of get you motivated and excited to build the business the right way for that much larger exit that you achieved?
I guess in the beginning when I was starting doing Amazon, I didn't think that the business was worth anything. I was just more like cash flow, building a business, getting some money, pay for expenses, and doing something that's kind of fun and not having a job. That was kind of my very small expectation. Then I start doing more and more of that and learning about people selling their business, getting some money in it. And that's when I contacted you, but just we realized that my business wasn't really streamlined. So I need to put a little bit more work into it. So I was like, okay, now the business was something and has some money. If I do put get things in order, it will worth a lot more. So that's when I got more focus and putting on more work.
Yeah.
And getting the businesses more streamlined.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the big thing that people, I think, don't do enough of. Look, everybody listening knows that I'm an entrepreneur first and foremost. I've been self-employed since 1997. I've built, bought, sold over 6 of my own companies and now work as an advisor. I think, personally touched at least 100 transactions that I've closed, over nearly 100 million in total value and another $500 million through Quiet Light. And the thing that I've learned as an entrepreneur and as an advisor working with the likes of you is that you don't know what you don't know. If you really understand what the value or potential value of your business is, and you go through the valuation process, those tough days get a little easier because you've got a goal set, right? So you say you want to sell the business for $1 million and you really understand what's right and what's wrong about the business, and that you're only at 750. You know that the current growth rate is going to get you to $1 million valuation in, let's say, a year. That year can pass by very quickly at that point because it's more exciting, it's more passionate, you're fulfilled by it, and you have an end goal. And I know that that's kind of, you and I have talked about this a lot, that's really what happened from the time we delisted the business the first time to so quickly you coming back and having the business worth 40% more, multiple offers within 3 weeks, and having to go under LOI and closing within, I think it was a total of 7 weeks. Setting goals, folks, cannot be done unless you have the right information. And that's exactly what Leigh did. She went about it an interesting way. Leigh, we actually went through the full process and listed your business, and then you know, life changed and we pulled the business, but you were able to then focus on those weaknesses and make it much more attractive for buyers. So that lesson I want to be passed out for folks that are out there doing it. Leigh, for the record, folks, I want you to understand, she came to this country, Leigh, when you were 3 years old. Is that right?
15.
15 years old. Sorry, 15
when
years
I was
old.
15, yeah.
I know there's a 3 in there. I think it was 15-year-old with 3 sisters.
I have 3 girls, family of 3 girls.
Family of 3 girls. And did you speak any English when you came to this country?
No, I came from like a small farm town in Vietnam.
Okay.
We never travel anywhere farther than 10 miles, maybe.
Really?
We stay in the little town, yeah.
In the little town. Did you have automobiles in your little town?
Yeah. Oh, no.
No.
No, we didn't even have TV, televisions, or I didn't grow up with electricity or water, like running water.
All right. You came to this country with your mother and 3 sisters. Did you have a whole bunch of money when you came to this country, or were you flat broke more or less?
We're flat rock and $2,000 in debt, but we have $200 that we borrowed. So we had $200 in our pocket with some debt.
Debt, $2,000 in debt, $200 in your pocket. And
right.
Fast forward, I think it was when you sold the business, was it, you built the business? When did you start it? You came to this country at 15, didn't speak any English. When did you start your Amazon business? How old were you ballpark wise? You still look like you're 15, by the way. So folks that are watching this don't get confused.
Okay. So maybe when I was, how old I was, 2015? No? Oh, me. So how long? So I sold 2 businesses ago, about 5 years. So maybe when I was 28?
Okay. So about 13 years later.
I was 28. Yeah.
She sold the business for high 6 figures.
Right.
And so what kind of obstacles did you overcome just to be able to launch the business? Were you fully fluent in English at that point when you started the business?
No, I feel like I'm gifted in a lot of area, but when it comes to language, it's kind of always like a struggle. But I know how to hire people. I know that I need to hire people that can do a better job than me. So there are a lot of things when it comes to writing, the listing, or customer service, other stuff, then I outsource those tasks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is that the thing that you recommend to most people, is outsourcing those types of tasks?
If that's not something that they're good at or they will be struggle at.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you focus on people that spoke your first language, or did you just use Odesk or people from the Philippines? What you use for outsourcing?
Use from Upwork and some girl that I met at a networking place. But just based on their skill, it doesn't matter where they came from.
Just as long as they've got that skill.
Yes.
Yeah. And you did this, you grew the business while having 1 baby or 2? I forget.
2, while I was having 2 babies.
Well, you're having 2 babies. All right. So you really had 2 full-time jobs.
Right. Yeah. To think about it, that was kind of crazy.
And is that the motivation behind selling the business? Is that what drove you to exit the business so you could focus on mom, or did you want to have that notch under your belt and put some money in the bank?
I felt like I wanted to have some peace of mind, some money in the bank, and focus on something else.
Are you launching another e-commerce business, or have you already?
I have already started one brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's like entrepreneur, they never quit.
Never going to quit.
Yeah, I'm never going to quit. Now
that you've exited one business, when you've launched this new brand, did you launch it with an eventual exit in mind someday? Because you've been there, you know where the majority of money from running the last business came, and that's from the exit. Are you thinking the same thing, that someday you'll exit this new brand as well, and you're building it with that in mind? Yes, I do have that in mind. But I don't want to put a lot of goals and setting a lot of plans, because it just kind of take out the fun of it. I just do it at one step at a time, one day at a time. Yeah. When you sold the last business, the amount of money that hit your bank account, Was it more money that you were able to take out of the business in all the years that you owned it, or was it about even?
No, there was a lot more. It's basically almost pure profit because although that 5 years that I had the business, we pull out the money, we bought a bunch of real estate, and we would invest in other stuff. So definitely all that money was profit.
Okay. So in running the business, you were able to pull some out along the way, some cash to make some investments. The total that you were able to pull out over the years, and it was about 5 years that you operated that, was it, do you think it was, and this is just ballpark number, equal, greater than the amount that you got in cash at closing?
I would say less.
Less? Yeah. So you got more in cash at closing or less than cash at closing?
More in cash at closing. Yeah. Okay. Because the first 2 years, we don't really make much money.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those listening that have been through the situation where you're operating the business and you operated it, you launched it like I did my first business. I just wanted to be free. I wanted to be an entrepreneur and live my own life and make more money than I could in a day job. And I did that. But sometimes when you've got a product-based business like yours, Leigh, you find that you're putting more money into growing it. And all of your cash flow is tied up in inventory and new launches and things of that nature. And you've probably heard the term or phrase that you make more money on the day you sell the business than you do from all of the money, all the years that you operated it. And that's particularly true in a business that's growing rapidly, that requires a cash infusion for inventory. Normally, you're just paying to get more and more inventory to keep up with growth, and you're not taking a whole lot out. I've sold a business, Leigh, where we sold the business for about $1 million, and Jeremy, the owner, had operated it for 3 years. And during that entire time, he was not able to take any cash out of the business at all. And so naturally, most of his money came from the exit. Sounds like yours did as well. Is there anything that you've learned along the way that you would say to the, let's say, female audience members? And I know that whatever the advice is, it could apply to both, but there are not enough female entrepreneurs out there. It's an imbalance, I think, in this e-commerce world, that there seem to be more men than women. Were there any resources or connections that you had that helped you as a female entrepreneur versus just, the typical resources that are out there for everybody?
Recently, I found a very good Facebook group. It's called Boss Mom. So it's a lot of women, female entrepreneurs that kind of like helping out each other, encouraging each other. Because I think that's a good Facebook group.
Boss Mom, okay.
Boss Mom, yes.
Okay. Look that one up, folks. We'll bookmark it as well. Boss Mom. Okay. Anything else?
I think as a woman and as a mom, we tend to focus on families and raising kids, and we don't think of us as, like a business woman. So we tend to focus on people other needs first before we putting on our needs. So I think we need to find a balance so we can focus on raising a family, but also fulfill your need as a business woman, like if you want that for yourself.
And how do you find that balance? Because you really do have two jobs. You're raising two kids and you've got a business that's generating, 7 figures in revenue. How do you find that balance?
Stay up late. I have a very good supportive husband, who'll take care of the kid a lot of times. So he understands, he know that I have a business and I'm not just a mom, so like a wife.
Was Ty working from home while you had the two babies, or was he going off to work every day, right? He had a
full-time job too. He had a full-time job. Okay. And he finally quit his work. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So now he's a full-time investor, real estate investor, and a stock trader, and he's really happy. So I'm happy because he sold the business, so that kind of balance it out and help him to pursue his dream too.
Excellent. So that really freed you both up to be the sale of the business, freed you both up to spend more time with each other and have more freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Parent full time.
That's good. You sold the business so you could get him to quit his job and help you some more, right?
Yeah. but we don't say that.
We don't say that. Ty's not going to listen to this podcast. He's not allowed to. Now, part of the freedom and flexibility is that you were able to move to South Korea not too long after the sale of the business and enjoy some personal travel time, right? Well, almost.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened there.
So as soon as we got there, COVID hit, so we couldn't go nowhere. But we enjoyed little trip because Korea has a lot of mountains and a lot of natural places. So we had a lot of hike. We enjoy nature a lot, and that was really nice. Like basically, we just drive 1 hour. We got to the mountain, waterfall, hiking everywhere, and good food.
Good food too. So you were able to explore South Korea, but not leave the country, essentially, right?
Right. Yes, that's true.
Right. Now we're doing this episode because you were gracious enough to spend time with our CMO, Christopher Moore, who's also a film producer as well, in the next episode of the Quiet Giants series. For those that haven't listened to those yet, or watched them, I should say, go to the Quiet Light page on YouTube, and Leigh is the 4th chapter in the Quiet Giants series, talking about your full story. And I think that we had a film crew head over to South Korea and film you over there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was so much fun.
Now, I think you're lying there just a little bit, right? It wasn't that much fun.
The filming part was fun. The interview was a little bit stressful.
Walking on the beach and being filmed, not a problem, but being interviewed. Because you're an introvert, right? You seem to be very much an introvert and shy person.
Definitely, and I always think that I'm awkward all the time.
Not at all. Not at all. Being an introvert makes it a challenge, I would think, to go to events in person. Boss Mom, a Facebook group for women, that would be easy because it's online communication and you're typing. What about in-person events? Because you and I met in, I think it was Texas at an in-person event. Do you find it an essential part of entrepreneurial growth to go to in-person events and mastermind groups? Or do you think it's something that can be avoided these days if you're a deep introvert and not comfortable with those types of environments?
Actually, I had a lot of fun every time I go to those events because I find like a lot of people actually like me, like kind of shy, hardworking, and very focused on business. Yeah, so I always had a lot of fun just to see like, hey, there's more people like you out there.
Right, right. And probably it was a good chance to get away and spend some time with other like-minded people.
Oh, yeah, and meeting a lot of friends. Still have friends that we talk to nowadays, yeah.
Okay, you've made good connections. And by going to those events, you made connections, and are those connections that carry over beyond that event and into your next business that you're running now, and you can chat with people about, new ideas and what they're doing and what you're doing?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They share new brand that they're launching, and we're helping each other out, sharing resources and all that. Basically, we'll talk almost all the time.
All the time. Good.
Yeah, they're like my friend now.
Excellent. All right. So we've got Boss Mom on Facebook. I want to understand some of the events that you've been to, and aside from the Quiet Light podcast, of course, what other podcasts have you listened to or events that you've gone to that you'd recommend other entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs attend?
So the last event that I ran is SellerCon, and I really like that.
SellerCon. And who hosted that?
Athena Saveri.
Ah, yes. Titan Network. Okay. Athena's fantastic.
Yeah, she actually the queen of e-commerce. She hosts the best event. I enjoy it. Yes.
Your voice and screen froze there for a moment, but I do believe you called her the queen of e-commerce. Is that what you called? Is that her title?
I think so. Yes.
All right. It's official, folks. The queen of e-commerce is Athena Saveri from the Titan Network and one of the hosts of the SellerCon event. We're going to call her that from now on. She actually was gracious enough to give me a quote in my upcoming book, The Exitpreneur's Playbook, that is launching June 15th. So she is indeed the queen of e-commerce. You are now completely frozen on the screen, but I'm assuming you can hear me just fine, though. Is that correct?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Excellent. All right. Any other events that you've gone to that, or podcasts that you listen to that have been a real inspiration for you over the years that others could learn from as well?
I do like Helium 10 a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
And then your podcast always finds very interesting. Quiet Lie Brokers.
Yes. Well, I would expect you to say that because you're on it now. So thank you. But with Helium 10, you're listening to the Bradley talking about the software and the things that people can do to grow their businesses. You find Helium 10 is really a good resource for you?
Yes. Right now, Tim Jordan holds it, and I really like him. Yes.
Tim Jordan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a story about Tim. I think the last time we chatted, he was talking about something to do with a puppy and being at an airport and being arrested or something along those lines.
Oh, wow.
Quite the story.
He's funny.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's a funny guy. Any last minute thoughts, Leigh? I know that I want to be gracious with your time because I know you're running around the house looking for a quiet spot because the kids are home, and we've taken up so much of your time in the last podcast in Quiet Giants, and now doing it once again for the final time, maybe knocking on wood here. I might be someday. In regards to growing a business with an eventual exit in mind, is there anything that you would share, anything that you can think of that if you were sitting down with some of those close friends that you've met over the years through events, that you'd advise them on, anything you'd suggest that they do in order to understand the value of what they have?
I think what I learned the most is when I actually talk to you. Then that's when I understand, like, oh, I really have something in this business. And then you really advise, like, what you need to do to raise your evaluation of your business. Mm-hmm. So I think if anybody actually thinking about selling a business or building a business that want to exit one day, then should reach out to you and just have a chat.
Well, thank you. Let's take that, folks, and just say that in order to understand the real value of your business, you do have to go in depth on the business itself. It's not one phone call or one glance at a profit and loss statement. There's so much more to it than that. Leigh and I spent a lot of time on calls together to figure out the valuation initially, and then the second time around, which was a much higher value and a much quicker exit. But look, you've got to do it at your own time and at your own pace, but don't wait too long. You've all heard Mike Jackness here on the podcast. He's the host of Ecom Crew. And Mike had multiple businesses. He knew exactly what he needed to do to sell his businesses. And he said in his mind, he would get to it someday. And then he woke up and someday was here. And of the 4 that he wanted to sell, only 1 was sellable because of a variety of situations. And so he was able to exit 1 and exit it well, but the other 3, even though he's emotionally done and ready to move on, because that someday was there and he woke up and it was too late to make the changes that was necessary in order to exit them all, he was able to exit only 1, held the other 3, and it's worked out okay, but he didn't achieve his initial goal. So I wouldn't wait too long, no matter who you talk to, whether it's Quiet Light or anybody else that you're comfortable with and may have a relationship with. Have an in-depth conversation about the value of your business so that you learn. If they're putting pressure on you to list your business, just walk away. That should never, ever happen. It's an educational process so you understand the true value of what you have and how close or how far away from your goals that you are. And once you understand how close or how far away you are, you do become much more motivated in most cases, right? So Joe Cochran's been on the podcast, and the first conversation I had with Joe, Leigh, he was very much like you, struggled, as a youth, a lot of challenges to overcome, whether yours was the language barrier and getting to know this country, his was other things. And as he says, I stomped on his heart the first time we had a lengthy call because his business wasn't worth what he thought it was worth. But he did learn what he had to do to fix it. His goal was $1 million exit. And 12 months later, the business was worth about $1 million. And he was enjoying it so much more at that point, and it was so much more efficient. He set new goals. We ended up exiting the business for more than 2.5 times that.
Wow.
So setting goals and reverse engineering a path to them can only be done properly when you do what Leigh did, which is have that initial phone call, go through the process. Yes, Leigh did list the business, you did list it, and then pulled back, but that was for personal reasons. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad it worked out for you and Ty and the family. Please say hello. I haven't chatted with him for a couple of years now. And I'm so happy and excited for you. And thank you for coming on the podcast again for the second time and being part of Quiet Giants. You've been so gracious with your time and experience and inspiring others. So thank you so much, Leigh, for coming on once again.
Thank you, John, for having me again.
My pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.